Good morning, Nana.
Good morning, Randy. Thanks for having me this morning.
Right. I hope that you're doing well.
We're good.
Okay.
Agreed.
So I've seen a statement from your outfit, and you describe the assurance of a stable national power supply by the ECG as scandalous. What brings you to this conclusion?
Well, first, Randy, we've been concerned about the inconsistencies in ECG's communications. You remember when this Dumsor started so much around mid-February, the ECG came out for an excuse that we're about 630 transformers nationwide that are overloaded, for which reason we must expect some Dumsor. Then, over the last few days, we've also seen indication from ECG that GridCo has outages at some bulk supply points, for which reason some parts of a localized area might have to go out. Then, last 3 days, we saw a statement that ECG posted that we have a stable national power supply, seeking to equate that with a stable national grid. And we're saying that they must not confuse the two. They have different meanings. A stable national power supply refers to that reliable, consistent power supply from, let's say, a distributor to consumers, and that there are no outages. But let's ask ourselves, do we have outages or not? And so we know very well that we have outages right from the beginning of the year to today. The ECG cannot boast of a stable national power supply. Even going further to look at what stable national grid is, it's related to the network or the infrastructure used to move the power, whether through transmission or distribution. And so it may relate to the transmission lines, conductors, transformers. The ECG manages just a subsection of this national grid. The bulk of it is managed by GridCo. So we ask, and in what capacity is the ECG talking about the stable national grid? When in its own distribution network, they complain about 630 transformers. And so we believe that the two are non-existent, and there's nothing like stable national power supply today. That is quite deceptive, and that's why we find it quite surprising and scandalous.
Right. Okay. So for the benefit of our viewers, when the expression stable national supply is used, what does that mean?
A stable national power supply means that there is supply reliability, there is consistency in the supply of power from a distributor to consumers, and that there are no outages or minimal outages. But what we are seeing today is not minimal outages, and that there's no reliable and consistent power supply. We cannot even assure ourselves of when one section of the country can have power and when another will have to lose power. We can't even tell whether one day we'll have a major brownout or a blackout of the country, since we know today that the load that you and I place on the system is far bigger than what the power that's being churned out by the producers and the transmitter. And there's a deficit. And if you don't manage the deficit of more than 500 megawatts as a distributor, and you force to distribute it to everybody, it might end up in a system shutdown. That is why we are seeing the load shedding, and that's the work of ECG to do, to manage the load.
Nana, I find something rather baffling, and it's this. Now, apart from the loss, the fact that we're told that ECG cannot even account for 30% of what it receives, which shows that you then have a deficit of some 30%. We're consistently being told by players in the industry that there is a deficit in the supply to ECG almost on a daily basis, sometimes ranging between 350 and 500 megawatts. Now, how do you have this kind of situation and say that there is a stable national supply and say that when we have outages, these outages are localized? I'm trying to understand this, trying to make sense out of this.
Randy, it doesn't, in fact, you crack your head and it still will not make any reason to you because it defines common sense here. When you yourself complain about receiving less power from GRICO, yet you claim you have a stable power supply and that you meet the demand of consumers across the country. It is not the case. It is something that will come to stay that over the past few months, that they are using ECG to manage the situation. And it's quite deceptive. They try to be deceptive in their approach. In previous times, when we are having such challenges, because the system operator is not ECG but GRICO will first release a statement indicating the challenge upstream and saying that because there is a challenge with the flow of, let's say, gas, or there is deficits in power generation, we are unable to meet the demand of our customers. We are sorry. And here their customers are ECG and NETCO. On the back of their statement, the ECG will come and say, reference to GRICO's challenge, we are unable to also provide power to the entire populace or consumers. For that reason, we are compelled to shed load. This is the common sense approach we've seen over the years. What is happening today? Since the beginning of the year till now, GRICO has been tight-lipped. What are they hiding? Then the ECG will come and give an excuse, which is not tenable. 630 megawatts, 630 transformers, not tenable. Stable power supply, not tenable. And I think that all this miscommunication or deception could hurt the reputation of the ECG. It must bear in mind that it is not only about consumers, but the investors. If Randy needs a timetable, he should provide one himself. If the PLC is requesting the ECG to produce one, the PLC should churn out one by itself. Also very insulting. I think that they must be forthright and straight with Ghanaians as to what is happening in the sector and assure Ghanaians how they intend to resolve the issue. I don't know whether you cited the new directive from the president.
Now, two issues here. When you listen to the ECG, the impression is created that these shortfalls in supply to them are sudden. They are not anticipated. They are not planned. And therefore, it will be difficult for them to come up with a timetable. So, for example, they just there and then, let's say as we have in this interview, they get a notice from GRICO, shed 200. On the basis of that, they are unable to give you a timetable. And then I've also realized that in the last 1 week, what we've seen is that at least I've seen two statements from the ECG where it says that GRICO says is not going to provide X, or we're not going to get X megawatts of power. And so these areas, then it gives a long stretch. Yesterday, the one I heard was from, I think, somewhere community 24 or something, all the way to Chopoli. And it says that, well, this is because there's a deficit in what we're getting from GRICO. As and when GRICO improves the supply, we would also improve your supply. And it ends there.
Randy, it is not the case that ECG receives short notice from the GRICO. I don't know even if they receive notice at all, but if you are in the sector, Randy, I can send you from the beginning of the year on daily basis how much power is being produced. From the beginning of the year up to today, we're talking about. We've done the table. We receive system condition sheet from the system operator Greco each day. And for the ECG, it's done on hourly basis. So at least they know what's happening in the sector. And Randy, it might just, surprise you to note that from the beginning of the year up to today, the system has never been able to generate anything in excess of 3,300 megawatts since the beginning of the year. Meanwhile, we have a peak demand of about 3,650, indicating a shortfall of close to 400 megawatts. It is something even the little boy in the Kunfiabor knows, because there's a data available. The ECG cannot say that we don't know what's happening in the sector. At least they could take a cue from last month, last 2 months, last 3 months, knowing that each day we have a deficit of close to 400. At least use this common sense or this data to generate your timetable. Don't wait for anybody to bring you anything. You know very well that they generate something around 3,200 megawatts. Then they export about 250 to 300 megawatts. So what you are left to manage for domestic consumers is something around 2,900 megawatts, of which you need more. So shed load, that is it. For the vehicle outages they are announcing these days, the ECG is announcing, for us it is diversionary. They know exactly what's happening in this sector, and they themselves are frustrated, yet they cannot speak to the issue. They are being careful. Randy, I can assure you, if you go to the desk of ECG management, you go to supervisors, and I'm sure it tells even in the statement of PUGU, their own utility workers union, they were clear in the statements that they are struggling to issue a timetable because they are not getting information from RICO. That's a lie. They have information from the data sheet. They don't need to wait for RICO. But then they are saying that they don't have enough to manage. And they were expecting that we'll stop the exports so that they have enough to distribute across the country. And so everybody is trying one way or the other, including the sector minister, to whitewash the issues.
What do we need to do as citizenry? It appears that the regulator, beyond just issuing a statement and writing to ECG, has not done much. And I'm even saying this because even when the regulator was asking for a timetable, even after they've asked for a timetable, the minister says that go and produce your own timetable if you think that you want one. What can we do under this circumstance? Look, I've had a businessman send me, just after I spoke about the issue of the gadgets in my home, I've had a businessman send me what has happened to air conditioners at his place. And he's put the things in a wheelbarrow. I'm sure that my producer can project that. This is what the businessman sent to me in Kumasi. He sent to me that it says this is what has happened to his air conditioners in the last 90 days. So that's what you see there. It says this is what has happened to him in the last 90 days. So for us as citizens, what do we do?
What we're going through currently is not just hitting people's appliances in the office and homes, but in industries, the hospitals are all struggling. And because the outages are rampant and it hits their system, what we must do as a country, Randy, we must brace ourselves for the worst. And I tell you what we are seeing today is induced by $1.5 million debt in the sector. And so I would say it's financial challenge that's bringing us this to so at this point. Meanwhile, apart from this 1.5 million, next month or this month, we'll incur additional loss. We'll add it to the 1.5. The next 2 months, we'll incur an additional one. If $1.5 million is giving us this problem.
Is it million or billion?
1.5 billion, sorry. If $1.5 billion is giving us this problem, what will $2 billion debt do to us? What will $2.5 billion do to us? And the ECG is not working as much as we expect. to block the revenue leakages. That is why they cannot even, comply with the cash waterfall mechanism. And so if the debt is going to increase next month, next 2 months going forward, then the issues will be worse. And like we said, we pity the next government that will be formed. They will come and inherit a cliff. And when you fall, it's bank here. I'm sure Ghanaians must begin to look for alternative source of power because we cannot rely on the grid. It's not reliable. And they are not working to address the issue because they are not even admitting the problem. How do they work to address it? Let's go and look for other means of energy. Whether you want to restore to generator, fine. If you want to go and look for solar or other forms of energy, that is also cool. We only pray that the Energy Commission will not frustrate people that want to move away from the grid to solar in particular. And also for those who want to resort to generators. If they did the economics, some will find that even using the generator, and you can speak to the hotels, Randy, most of them, even before this Dumsor heightened, they were using generator, then use the national grid rather as a backup because it is cheaper. We only pray that fuel price should not go up. But if fuel prices are to reduce to, let's say, 10 cedis per liter or 9 cedis, it's better you use a generator than to use the grid. And so let's resort to another forms of energy. Then we should still push the PRC to act in our interests because it must protect consumers. It is their work to do, not just the power sector players. But maybe it is time that you and I also take it up ourselves to deal with the UCG and to compel them either through the court or any other means to give us the power that we so much desire or require. Randy, you know something here? I'm sure you're a prepaid consumer.
Yes.
I'm a prepaid consumer. And so they owe me a duty. They owe me power to supply. If they are not able to meet this part of the bargain, I'm sure as a citizen or as citizens, we can also take ECG up. There's a few things we can do.
All right. Okay. Now I'm with you, the 7. Thanks for joining us. We thank you for your time, and I will call on you any other time that we need some clarification on these issues. We're most grateful for your time.
Brother Randy.
Right.